we don't need roads.
Branagh, good to see you again, sir. How are you? Welcome to Chicago.
Thanks.
I know this is a very personal film for you, a semi-autobiographical, but I was wondering how much that could be said, really, of your entire filmography. If I went back and watched every film you've directed, how much about you and your life would I learn by watching all of your films?
Well, I think you're right to say that I think a personal touch comes into everybody's film when it applies to the human dynamics, so this film is very much about family, but I felt the same way about Thor, where, Loki, Thor, and the brother rivalry and the difficult relationship with Anthony Hopkins as Odin, the father, made that a film about fathers and sons at the core of it somewhere for me, in amid all of that. So yes, I think there are lots of personal touches in all of the movies. That's probably true of all filmmakers.
I knew you grew up as a movie fan. I was wondering if you could travel back to 1968 Belfast and talk with a young Kenneth Branagh and tell him how all of this would turn out. First of all, how would you phrase it, and what do you think he would have said?
Well, I'd say keep dreaming. Keep dreaming, it's worth it. And one day you might end up at the Chicago International Film Festival. That, for that boy, as you'll see if you see the film, would be a hell of a journey to go on. But the kind of images that are being presented by this great festival are the kinds of ones I was seeing on television and in cinema back then. And they did encourage me to dream and to dream big. And actually enjoy the dreaming, not necessarily some arrival point, although this is a beautiful stop on the way, I can tell you that. But to enjoy the dreaming, the creative burst that cinema gave me in my head was really something that stayed with me for my whole life.
I want to talk about cinema. I know this movie is a love letter to movies in a lot of ways. It's about a lot of things, but there's also a very beautiful testament to just the love of film. And I was just wondering if you could take me back to the moment that you feel like, yeah, that's when I fell in love with movies.
I think it was that communal experience in big cinema houses in Belfast with my family, in packed houses, where the whole ritual of having some sweets or popcorn or all that kind of thing that went with it, and the massive image. It just, for me, that was always a staggering thing, how big that image was, how colourful it was. And in movies, some of which are quoted in the film, like Chitty Chitty Bang Bang, the primitive delight in throwing yourself off the edge of your seat when the car in the movie drives off a cliff, even though it wasn't, as I watched the Bond film last week in 4XD with the seat shaking.
Wait, do you go do that? Is that what you do?
I did. I got wet. I got smoke in my mouth, and my popcorn.
Someone threw a martini on you somehow?
More or less. But I tell you, every time he reversed that car, I really felt I was there with him. So I felt like I'd been with an Aston Martin. But back in the old days, you did all that yourself, and it was still fun.
Love that. I'll cut you loose on this one. I feel like since you have so much experience behind the camera, you can look at a film through the prism of a director. What's a film that you were a part of that you didn't direct that you now see differently because you can look at it and go, look, I know what it took to pull that film off, and it makes me look at it differently?
Dunkirk, Christopher Nolan's Dunkirk, where I was in one of the strands of the film, seeing a massive amount of physical production, boats, ships, thousands of extras, and yet it was just one part of something that was also united by an incredible soundtrack, by a fractured sense of how time was going to play across that story. And even though I read the script, I couldn't quite see how it was going to go together. I saw Chris Nolan at the center of it like a wizard, making it all work and making time stand still so that he could do what he needed to do. But I didn't know that it would come together in the amazing way that it did, and I was thrilled to see it.
Has he seen this film yet?
He has seen this film, yeah. And he asked me, he said, how long did it take you to write it? I said, well, about 8 weeks. He said, yeah, 8 weeks and 50 years.
Yeah, you're exactly right. Sir Kenneth, always know.
Where we're going, we don't need roads.